Well, hello there. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon, live from Oxford this evening, our Mississippi Live Game of the Week. Typically, when we do this, we lead off with the highlights. We dig into that. We're going to postpone that a minute here to talk about weather, and then we'll eventually make it back to the highlights, to the, of course, band and spirit squads of the week. But we need to address the active weather that's on the way for tomorrow, potentially including that possibility that we could have some severe weather and maybe even some large hail to go along with that there. So as we look at the headlines this evening, number one is that tomorrow's severe weather chances are there, and we're watching a potential that we could have maybe some strong wind gusts, maybe even a few hailstones to go along with that. But in general, most storms hopefully will stay below severe limits on our future cast and where it's placing that. And then a big front, significant freeze, probably mid-20s out there for some spots by the first, more middle part of next week behind that transition. And as we talked about a moment ago, we're going to get all the game of the week stuff here in a couple minutes. We're 55, though, right now in Oxford. Has turned into a cool evening, I guess, what you'd expect for a November game. But no measured moisture at 51. That's an important number when we talk about the forecast portion of this, the severe weather, because that could be, and hopefully will be, one of our limiting factors. As you'll note here, looking a bit here, to show you overall a weather picture. As we kind of widen that, give me a moment. It is most to the north of us. And so that leaves, hopefully, a happy kind of, let me tap a happy middle zone here, where I think there's a question mark as to impressive storm potential will be, and hopefully somewhat of limiting factor as far as active weather, severe weather potential is concerned. As things stand this evening here, you can see again hour-by-hour forecast for tomorrow. The overall coverages don't improve that much through the day. Perhaps late into the evening and tomorrow night that will be the case, but with a lack of meaningful moisture on a significant and widespread scale, we are hopeful, again, looking at the latest information, that that limits the severe weather threat somewhat. So when we look at our confidence, this is not a highly confident severe weather scenario. Maybe a very limited tornado threat, but you're going to get rotating thunderstorms. So that's, again, where that's not impossible, but they should be high based. And that's the reason why even damaging wind, not a huge consideration. We're thinking if we see something, hail could be the main factor. And even then, I'd say medium is overstating the case on this. We are unimpressed with this setup, but weird things sometimes happen. This is the key. Measure of moisture. It's a dew point based on the same scale as the temperature. It's near the 60-degree point in the delta. Moisture more effectively moving northward there. And I do anticipate that it will prime up a lot more for tomorrow. But if we're talking tornadoes, typically we expect those values to be up around 70. We're not going to be that high. I think, again, that's a limiting factor. So as you can see here, looking over the next 12 hours, really, at the overall setup on our future cast, we do not have much but a cloud cover moving in. And it is not impossible that we could have some fog, maybe even some dense fog with this. I think that the green you're seeing there, as we look at this hour-by-hour forecast, is probably just that. It's probably going to be a little bit of fog, a little bit of drizzle, and overall expecting conditions to more often than not be dry. Temperature's a little mild tomorrow morning, as you know. We mentioned we're in the mid-50s now. This means only dropping 2, maybe 1 degree here in Oxford by tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So we might dip a little bit and then come back up temperature-wise overnight. You know, it's one of those weird things that sometimes happens. It's a signal we'll have some storms. By tomorrow afternoon, near the 80-degree point for a lot of spots. We still show some 70s in the northeast portion of the area. Is that warm surge of warm, moist air that really is kind of the feature helping to enhance some of those storm chances. So let's look at the latest future cast here. And as we go through this, you'll notice 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. We do show some sprinkles. And notice around the Golden Triangle there, West Point, Aberdeen, we're at noontime, a little bit more yells showing up. That's not shocking because we do anticipate that there should be at least some fuel out there. But as this kind of surge of moisture moving in, not expecting those to be overly heavy, but weird things sometimes happen, maybe a hailstone with that. You notice we kind of see this zone where things sort of subside at peak heating there, 2 o'clock or so. We're getting the kids home from school and we're in good shape there. As we head toward 3 p.m., not much. Same thing 4 p.m. Same thing 5 p.m. So a lot of times when we talk about severe weather of significance, it is that afternoon time period that's the case where we have to worry. don't really show much in that time period for us at that point. But notice from Cleveland back toward Oxford and New Albany, we're at 6 p.m., we're at 7 p.m. in the evening, a front moving into the area. And I've left it off this graphic so we can see everything. But that front could be a focal point for some of those thunderstorms. We do expect those to develop a little bit more into the evening. Now, you will note if you watched us at 5 and 6 o'clock, or you watched us last night, more thunderstorms showing up there as we look toward 9 to 10 o'clock than what we had before. We expect we're going to be on the development end of thunderstorms, meaning they start here and get more impressive elsewhere. So while we show that storm around Red Bay just easily could be Tupelo or New Albany or Boonville at that 9 p.m. time period, this is where that limited hail threat comes in with some of those. You can see 10 p.m., still relatively unimpressive, but a little more red showing up than in previous broadcasts by around 11 p.m. So this is what we were talking about. Models don't always do a very good job with this limited moisture situation. And so as a result, still expecting that we could possibly have, again, a few of these produce a couple of hailstones, but this by no stretch of the imagination looks like a tornado setup. That is not what we're dealing with out of this. So again, latest update here from the Storm Prediction Center there in Norman, Oklahoma, showing up with that severe weather risk, the overall severe weather risk, really eastern 2/3 of the area. Storms developing and strengthening as they move to the north and east. But you'll also note, if you watched us much earlier, that they have trimmed back that severe level farther to the north and east. That has a lot to do with the confidence and maybe the lack of confidence in severe weather. Hail, the main factor. But again, if one of those storms gets going, gets rotating, gets in the right spot, again, it's a non-zero tornado threat. I would say I think it's highly unlikely. Weird stuff sometimes happens, so I'm not going to say zero, but let's say certainly less than 1% chance. And by that, I mean for any particular location in the area. So again, it's not a super impressive severe weather outbreak sort of setup. It's not an outbreak. I mean, even the damaging wind threat, when we look at this scale here up at the top of the screen, you see there, assuming I can point the right spot, says number of reports. This 1 through 5 goes to number of reports. You can still have one that causes damage. And if it's at your house, obviously that's a problem, right? As we zoom things back in here and we look at the forecast into early Saturday morning, you'll notice that front still initiating with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. I think most of us probably in the dry category as we go into your Saturday, but certainly watching that potential here as that kind of moves through. Drier air behind it. And we still expect that it could ignite with a few thunderstorms there out into Alabama, out closer to locations around maybe even Tuscaloosa. We're watching for that game there for Alabama. I think Ole Miss, Mississippi State, I think the timing of this secondary front, which has the big burst of cooler air with it, that's late enough that it probably doesn't affect the games there for Mississippi State and Ole Miss. But I think it could be still in place. We have front number 1 plus front number 2 equaling maybe some showers for Alabama. We'll look at those SEC football forecasts here in just a moment. So severe weather risk for your Saturday. Went past it again there, Caleb. I keep double clicking that, expecting it. I must need to put a shorter fade on that. So let's go back one there. Look at severe weather risk again for Saturday. Most of us are involved in that. If I have some questions about Friday, I have much, much bigger questions about Saturday severe weather risk. Unless something changes and that moisture pools better, I'm just not seeing this. We will see whether or not the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma keeps this outlook or if they tweak that a little bit more. High temperatures, they are going to be warm, arguably a little bit hot. Maybe hot's pushing it, but lower 80s out there. It'll be a little more sticky, and I think that is where that limited severe weather chance comes from. If you have enough moisture, front the wrong spot, maybe models are underdoing precipitation, and you end up with a few storms that are stronger. So I can say I can see kind of where that's coming from, but I'm not impressed by that potential. Hey, Mississippi State taking on Georgia. Looks like that forecast should be good. Again, if that secondary front, comes in, it'll bring the cooler temperatures. But I think a few isolated showers possibly for tailgating time period if you're there in the junction. But we're expecting the, rain chances remain very limited, but obviously always high impact when you're talking about a stadium there. It's a non-zero chance for both Mississippi State and, of course, here in Oxford. Citadel coming to visit Ole Miss and expecting that to be mid-70s for that game. Still, obviously, always expect to add about 8 to 10 degrees for what it feels like there in the stadium. And then Alabama, there's where the rain chances are better. You have front number 1 that's really weak, but still tries to initiate some of those showers. And front number 2 that has a much bigger push of drier air. If those work in conjunction, it's not impossible to get some isolated showers. So for that, certainly see. Okay, our forecast for tomorrow. Again, headline being there are rain chances there. Possibility maybe we could have some thunderstorms mixing in. The overall expectation, though, is that most storms should be below severe limits, but a couple could have gusts or perhaps a hailstone or two. Probably more the exception to the rule than the rule. And that 7-day forecast has, again, the big story, maybe, well, obviously the storm's tomorrow. But maybe the bigger story, once it's all said and done, is the drop in temperatures. You can see much cooler Sunday and only 40s for highs by Monday with 20s for lows. I'm telling you right now, Mrs. Lawpon's going to be super irritated with me because that's going to be a much cooler forecast as we head into next week. And yeah, that is not just a freeze, but kind of a hard freeze there as we look toward maybe Monday morning, but certainly Tuesday morning with many locations, most locations, mid-20s out there. It is a big, big burst of Canadian air settling into our region. Okay, coming up here after the break for Mississippi Live Weather, we're going to be looking at your highlights here from our Game of the Week presented by Casey Lott. Before we go there, I'm thankfully that you popped that up there for me, Caleb, because I didn't want to jump past this here, which is Weather Call. Weather Call, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, will call you if there's dangerous weather moving to your location. Obviously, a forecast can change. This is something that if for whatever reason you're at one of those few high school games that didn't cancel and you're out there tomorrow, call you, let you know. The Mississippi Live Weather app does that as well. But the QR code you see below me there, as we go through severe weather season, this is a personalized alert that I've always had for my family, still do, for my family out of state. I'll let you know if tornadoes are possible for your area, if they've been committing and financing. And it was definitely a good game. It was not the fastest of for Starkville. Let's get to the highlights here. Again, 35 to good first drive. The Oxford cheer squad off to a good start. Big pass, and look at this move. Man, I mean, Kevin Smith just puts the move on Starkville there and in for the touchdown early, only a couple plays in. And Oxford with the 6-0 lead. Extra point lined up. Well, we'll show that here in a second. But, of course, all the fans, the band. Unfortunately, Oxford was not our band of the week, but they had a good time anyway, and the kick is good on that extra point. 11:27. I mean, come on, 12 minutes is when the game starts. So that was only 30 plus 3 seconds into the game. Starkville with the ball deep in their territory. The touchback there, and then Starkville, quarterback, Kingston Johnston, ready to go. And he does so with a throw out to the outside there to number 3, Braylon Jenkins. And with a first down, Starkville moving the ball. But that's not much moving that went on there in the first half. Once again, Johnson scrambling the outside with a bit of a game. Before that, they had a bit of a loss. Quickly, and a trend in the first half for Starkville, and that's going for it on fourth down. Once again, Johnson, pass, incomplete. And, man, they're in Charger territory, but not by much. Turnover on downs. Oxford couldn't do much with it, so we picked things up here in the second quarter. Pass once again from Kiffin there, and throws it to Kevin Smith for the quick 2 plays later. Again, second down this here, and shot to the outside there to Sherman. Now, here's what's interesting. Excuse me, that was Christian Fields. This is a bizarre play here from Kiffin. Throws it, it's tipped tip kind of again. He gets it, tries to throw it. And so we end up in a situation here where we had the tip. We had an intentional grounding play on that, loss of down, and that set them back a little bit, had to punt it, and then Starkville gets it and finally starts moving here. The next Yellow Jacket possession to Johnson with a big scramble down the sideline, down. I mean, puts the move, and Starkville finally feeling it. The fans finally feeling it, and then deep into Charger territory. Another pass here, that one going out there to on the 25-yard line, and Starkville's finally moving the ball. Oxford just has to figure out a plan there on defense. The fans, again, not super psyched on the Oxford side as the defensive team or the offense trying to look and see if they can get the ball moving. But once again, Johnson drops back to pass it outside the number 7 for a touchdown, and Starkville is on the board. Extra point on that is good, and we have a tie game. We went into halftime with a tie game, and in the second half, things just absolutely lit up. In particular, the third quarter, score after score after score. And in the end, Oxford walks away with the victory, 27-21. Again, a big victory here for the Oxford Chargers. You can see a little preview of the band. We'll see the band of the week here in a second. But first, let's see our Spirit Squad of the week.
Here we go!